Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty crucial today. Data sovereignty, and get this, specifically for communes. Yeah, who knew, right? It's all about who gets to control the data, make the decisions, in a world that's, well, practically swimming in data these days. I mean, think about it. Communes are using data for everything now, like managing how we get around, keeping our streets safe, the works.
You hit the nail on the head, and what's really fascinating is how data sovereignty, which we usually think of in terms of like countries battling big tech, it's becoming super relevant at the local level, shaping how our communities actually function.
Okay, now I'm even more intrigued. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's break it down. Can you give us a clear definition of data sovereignty? Without all the tech jargon that can sometimes make my head spin.
Absolutely. Data sovereignty, at its core, is the right to control your own data. But it's not just owning the data, it's about who gets to set the rules of the game. How it's collected, stored, how it's used, even how it's shared. Think of it this way. If data is the new oil, right? Well, data sovereignty determines who owns the wells, the pipelines, the whole refinery operation.
Okay, that's a pretty powerful analogy.
Mhm.
I'm already starting to see how this applies to communes. They're responsible for so much, from waste management to public safety, all of which, you guessed it, generate tons of data.
Exactly. And those massive data sets, they can be incredibly valuable. But here's the catch. Without data sovereignty, communes risk becoming, well, almost puppets. They become reliant on outside entities, potentially losing control over how that data is used, maybe even losing access to it completely.
So it's like giving communes the keys to the kingdom,
Yeah.
basically, allowing them to actually use their data to improve those services, make better decisions, and ultimately serve their citizens more effectively.
Precisely. It's all about empowerment. Let me give you an example. One of the sources we have talks about this case study in Finland. A commune used data from traffic sensors and public transit systems to create a real-time transportation app for its citizens. The result: optimized bus routes, less congestion, and you know what? A more attractive public transport system overall.
Okay, that's a pretty convincing example. I'm starting to get the full picture of the potential here. It's about enabling communes to use data in creative ways to actually make a positive impact.
Yes, but it's important to acknowledge that it's not always a smooth ride. Communes face a bunch of challenges when it comes to actually achieving data sovereignty.
Let's talk about those challenges. What are some of the big roadblocks that communes are encountering?
Well, one major hurdle is this dependence on technology providers. Think about it. Many communes, especially smaller ones, rely heavily on these big tech companies for their software, their cloud storage, all those data-related services.
Yeah, so they run the risk of getting locked into systems that might not actually be in their best interest in the long run.
That's it. That reliance can lead to what we call vendor lock-in. Switching to a different provider becomes a nightmare, super difficult, incredibly expensive. It's like building your house on someone else's land, You're kind of stuck.
Makes perfect sense. What other challenges stood out to you from what we've been looking at?
Another big one is the lack of resources and expertise. To build the necessary infrastructure, to train people to handle data effectively, it all requires a significant investment, which can be a real struggle for communes, especially those with limited budgets and smaller staff.
It's like a catch-22. They need data sovereignty to thrive, but to get there, they need resources they may not have. Feels like a pretty daunting task.
It can be, absolutely. And then on top of that, you've got this constantly evolving legal and regulatory landscape. Data protection laws are always changing. It's like trying to hit a moving target.
So we've got reliance on external providers, lack of resources, a legal maze to navigate. What else? What other major challenges should we unpack?
One more that's super important is the issue of interoperability. Basically, it's about getting different systems and platforms to talk to each other, seamlessly. But what happens is communes often end up with data that's siloed in different departments.
So it's like having all the ingredients for a fantastic meal, but no way to actually combine them into like a cohesive dish.
Perfect analogy. Without interoperability, that data loses a lot of its value.
Okay, so we've got a pretty clear picture of the challenges here. Definitely not a walk in the park to achieve data sovereignty. But it's not all doom and gloom, right? There have to be some things communes can actually do, some actionable steps they can take to get more control over their data.
Absolutely. There are. While the obstacles are real, there are also practical steps communes can take. And a fantastic starting point is to develop clear data governance policies and strategies.
So we're talking about setting the ground rules right from the beginning. In practice, what would those policies look like?
They need to lay out in black and white, who can access what data, how is that data stored and protected, and very importantly, the purposes for which it can be used. Having these guidelines in place, it's not just about protecting citizen privacy and following the law, it's also about building trust and transparency.
So creating a framework for responsible and ethical data management. I get it. But policies alone aren't enough. What else can communes do to actually put these principles into action?
That's where investment in data infrastructure and skills development comes in. Communes need to build up their internal capacity. This could mean training existing staff in data analysis and management, or maybe even hiring dedicated data specialists.
I can see how that could be a hard sell for smaller communes with limited budgets, but I'm guessing there are ways to approach this strategically.
For sure. One way is to start small, focus on one specific area, like waste management or transportation, and develop a pilot project. This lets them prove the value of data sovereignty in a very real way, and potentially even attract funding or partnerships for bigger initiatives down the line.
So it's about demonstrating success on a manageable scale and then building from there.
Exactly. And they don't have to reinvent the wheel either. Collaboration and sharing best practices are key. There are already so many successful data sovereignty initiatives out there. Communes can learn a ton from each other's experiences.
It's about tapping into that collective knowledge, avoiding those common pitfalls.
Exactly. And finally, communes can advocate for supportive legal frameworks, both at the national and international levels. By working together, they can push for legislation that actually strengthens data sovereignty, gives them the tools they need to really thrive in this data-driven world we live in.
So it's about shaping the rules of the game, not just playing by them.
Yes. Data sovereignty isn't just a technical thing, it's a political issue too. Communes need to actively participate in shaping how data is governed in the future.
This has been really eye-opening. We've gone from defining what data sovereignty even is to mapping out the challenges and exploring some concrete steps communes can take. What's really striking me is how data sovereignty isn't just about control, it's about empowerment.
Absolutely. It's about equipping communes with the tools and the freedom to leverage data to truly benefit their citizens and their communities.
Now, I'm really curious to hear your take on all this. What are your thoughts? What stood out to you the most?
You know, what really resonates with me is that even with all the complexities and the challenges, there are things communes can actually do to move towards greater data sovereignty. It's not about flipping a switch overnight. It's about taking those strategic steps, laying a solid foundation for long-term success.
I couldn't agree more. And those steps, they're already being taken by communes all over the globe.
One strategy that's really effective is focusing on citizen engagement. Instead of treating data as some purely technical thing, communes can involve their citizens in the process, making data sovereignty way more transparent, way more participatory.
That makes a lot of sense. It's the citizens' data we're talking about after all. How are communes actually putting this into practice? Any cool examples?
Oh, there's some great ones. One that comes to mind is from Bologna, Italy. They've got this platform where citizens can access a ton of data about their city. We're talking air quality readings, public transport schedules, you name it.
So it's about giving people easy access to the information that directly affects them, their daily lives.
Exactly. But it's not just about viewing data, it's about interacting with it too. Citizens can provide feedback, suggest improvements, even propose whole new initiatives, all through this platform.
So it's a two-way street, empowering citizens to use data as a tool to actually shape their city.
Precisely. And the really impressive part is that the city government actually takes this citizen input seriously. They use it to make policy decisions, allocate resources, even improve services. For example, they redesigned a whole public park based on the feedback they got through the platform, made it more accessible, more family-friendly, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, that's a fantastic example of data sovereignty in action. It's not just about control. It's about working together, using data to make communities better.
Absolutely. Another inspiring case study is Barcelona, Spain. They've been using data to make the city more sustainable, more resilient, really tackling some big challenges.
Cities and sustainability, that's a topic I'm always interested in. What approach has Barcelona taken?
Well, they've adopted what we call a smart city strategy. They use data from sensors, cameras, all sorts of sources to monitor things like traffic patterns, energy consumption, how they manage waste, all that good stuff.
So they're getting a really in-depth understanding of how the city works, all driven by data. What are some specific ways they're using this data?
Well, take their waste management system, for example. They use data from smart trash cans, to optimize those collection routes, reducing truck traffic. And you know what that means, fewer emissions. And they've got these smart irrigation systems in public parks, using data to conserve water and keep costs down.
It's amazing how those little adjustments, when they're driven by data, can make such a big difference, both for efficiency and sustainability.
It really shows the power of making decisions based on data, you know? And these examples, they show that data sovereignty isn't just some theoretical concept. It's a real force driving positive change in cities all around the world.
This is seriously inspiring.
Exactly. And it's not just big cities either. Smaller communes are finding really creative ways to empower their citizens with data. There's a rural commune in France. They've got this mobile app where citizens can report issues like potholes or broken streetlights.
Makes sense.
It provides real-time data that helps the commune allocate their resources better, more efficiently.
Those are some really powerful examples of how data can be used to make positive changes at the local level. As we wrap up our deep dive here, I'm really struck by the idea that data sovereignty is about so much more than just the tech side of things or the regulations. It's about people.
I couldn't agree more. It's about giving individuals and communities the power to use data to improve their lives, shape their own futures.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation, really insightful. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
It's been my pleasure, truly.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity about data sovereignty, all the possibilities it holds for transforming our communities. If you're interested in learning more, we've got some great resources linked in the show notes. And we encourage you to start conversations about data governance in your own communities. After all, the future of data is something we create together.